I want to say good morning to everyone who was here this morning. The purpose of this press conference today, I wanted to acknowledge the Honorable Judge Morgan on Friday for the third time denied Samuel Kane bond for threatening to assassinate me. It appears that the threat of assassination or the violent threats against me have only increased since he's been behind bars. And I want to thank law enforcement. I want to thank SLED, the solicitor, the prosecutor who is pursuing this to the fullest extent of the law. As some of you may know, I live with death threats every single day. On average, we get over 1,300 death threats, credible threats, every single year. And particularly from transgender individuals or those affiliated with that movement, it's particularly the most violent threats come from those types of individuals. I currently have another individual who's being held without bond in Pennsylvania. He threatened to assassinate President Trump and myself earlier this year or last year, and he's still behind bars. The feds are also prosecuting an individual out of Indiana. We have not yet made that public. That's new information, but there'll be a prosecution that they're pursuing on an individual who's threatened to blow up my office or offices. And so we take all of our threats seriously. And today I wanted to thank Judge Morgan for following the letter of the law. I also wanted to thank law enforcement, particularly in the wake of Charlie Kirk. Uh, Samuel Kane seems to have been inspired by the political assassination of Charlie Kirk while he's been behind bars because an informant came forward, and when this informant was released from jail, this individual went to the authorities because he was deeply concerned for my safety based on the comments behind bars when he met Samuel Kane. And those comments, he asked me if, in the wake of Charlie Kirk, if he would try to murder me or assassinate me, and he said yes. And given this behavior behind bars, I'm deeply grateful that law enforcement found him, sought him out, and that they are prosecuting this to the fullest extent of the law. I feel safer today because of it. I also want to add on, we saw a weekend of more violence, at least. We had this young woman who's vice president of Brown University's Republican Club who was murdered in cold blood over the weekend at Brown University. We had this attack in Sydney, Australia, on Bondi Beach, where almost a dozen Jews were murdered in cold blood. We saw the attack on American troops over the weekend in Syria. And so we're in very trying times, very difficult times. And we know here domestically, it was just announced this morning, Pam Bondi and the FBI uncovered basically a plan to blow up certain sites on New Year's Eve with a far left pro-Palestinian group. And so domestic terrorism, political violence is something that is being taken seriously under the Trump administration. We're deeply grateful for it. So with that, I'm happy to take some of your questions. If anybody has one, I guess raise your hand, or I guess there's a emoji thing that you can click on to raise your hand to ask questions. Does anyone have any? Okay, I guess Emily has a question. All right,
Good
Emily?
morning. Thank you for being here. So the father previously apologized to you and you had talked about that. Can you just continue on, what that meant to you on a personal level and then your continued fight, with this particular case?
Yes, his father in the first bond hearing introduced himself to me and was very kind. And I appreciate that and expressed my appreciation to Samuel Kane's family. But the situation appears only to have gotten worse for Mr. Kane while he's been behind bars with more threats on my life. And so I'm very grateful to law enforcement, to SLED, and to the Honorable Judge Morgan, for keeping me safe.
And then what's next in this case?
I guess there will be a trial next. This was the third bond hearing to bail him out of jail. Didn't happen. I don't have a trial date set yet, but I imagine that'll be the next step, is getting those dates on the books to pursue this under the court of law. But the other thing I want to mention too, and just reiterate here, is that these comments, this second threat behind bars, came in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's assassination. And I think it's very important that there's a responsibility that we have as leaders to uphold the letter of the law and to also make sure that our communities are safe and that we're operating safely and that we're mindful of, the things that we say that could cause violence. I mean, they don't they don't they don't want to kill me because I'm a Nazi, right? The saying is they call me a Nazi so that they can kill me. And I don't know if you all saw Elon Musk's comments last week, but he doesn't go out in public anymore. And the reason is one mistake and you're dead. And I fully sympathize with Elon and with the threats that he receives and his inability to go out in public anymore. That's about where most of us are who get threats on a daily basis like we do.
And
Thank you. And
yep.
do you have another question?
I was just gonna ask, like, how are you feeling about all of this on a personal level?
Yeah, but it's scary. I mean, quite frankly, it's scary. I'm a single mom. And, a lot of people don't know that as members of Congress, we don't get a detail. It doesn't come with the job. And if you happen to be vocal and outspoken, the threats only increase. I had an incident in Charleston about 3 weeks ago. I was in public having lunch. I had security there. I have to have security everywhere where I go these days. But we had an incident where an individual came up to where I was eating lunch with a group of individuals, and even with my security there, and physically leaned into me and made a physical threat. And so this was the most recent physical threat. And I will tell you, the folks around the table were in shock. And in fact, one of them, I believe, wrote a letter to the editor about it because they were in such shock. And I was like, this is just another Friday. I mean, I live with this sort of thing on a very regular basis. I've had to dramatically change my movements, particularly since Samuel Kane. But I've had to dramatically change the way that I might move. I can't, like, for example, I can't walk through open air parking lots anymore. That is no longer a thing. I have to I have to have somebody with me, an armed guard, wherever I go. And it's not debilitating isn't the right word, but it's scary. And I empathize with Elon Musk, where he said, one mistake and you're dead. And the fact that even with security lot 3 weeks ago and with people around me, that someone got 6 inches from my face making a threat, it's terrifying. And these people, if you read the comments online, these people are terrorists, like they're domestic terrorists. They go online and they say the most awful, most horrific things. And at some point, someone's going to take a gun and they're going to pull the trigger. And my children get threats. I have employees that get threats as well. I've talked about it earlier, but over the course of about 6 to 8 weeks, we had like 10 flat tires between multiple employees. I've never seen anything like it, including one that had a razor in the tire. And most of the tires that were flattened via broken valves. Like I just a very 9 out of 10 tires were flattened due to broken valves. One was with a razor. Or some kind of sharp object. And you see these sort of things, and you have to reassess how do we keep ourselves safe going forward. And every capacity, even when I'm on the hill, I will have someone walk with me at least. It won't prevent something from happening, but at least there are safety precautions that we're putting in where we can. I'm grateful to the House who's also increased our given us a budget for the first time to be able to actually hire security. Because before August, um, we were really hamstrung with the ability to afford security. Security is not cheap. And if you're someone who gets a lot of threats, one guy isn't going to cut it. You need at least two people when you are on the road or at events. And God forbid, if you have a large event, the number of security you need at $40 to $50 an hour, it gets very expensive. And unless you're very wealthy, it's not something anybody can afford. I can't afford it. And certainly I'm grateful to the House for giving us some provisions to try to keep us safe. But the Speaker has promised to give me a larger budget than other members because of a number of threats that we receive. And Capitol Police has been very involved as well.
Congresswoman, just to follow up on that,
Mhm.
you from your congressional side of business to running for governor as well. I mean, how is that, just to kind of follow up on what you were saying, has that challenged your run for governor, events, things like that?
It's certainly with the number of threats that we receive, and particularly in the wake of Charlie Kirk's murder, it has made us reassess every single movement that we make. And when President Trump was shot, the threats continued, but we all kind of went on life as business as usual. But when Charlie Kirk was murdered, that really changed everything. You saw us uh, slow down on the town hall. We were doing town halls pretty frequently up until then. We have pulled that back. I hope to get back on the road and be able to do some of those next year, but we're going to have to take major security precautions. No more outdoor events, for example. There will have to be magnetometers for our events. Like this is something that I want guests to feel safe at our events, etc. Um, I did have a private event, I guess it was 2 weeks ago. There's so many things happen, and you forget, but I had to leave early because an individual showed up who was not on the list, and was the behavior was a little off. And so, we just have to take everything up a notch. I mean, again, like Elon Musk said, one mistake and you're dead. And we have to be very circumspect about it and, control my movements. I just can't get up and go outside for a walk in the morning or go to the grocery store. I mean, it takes a lot of planning just to go out.
Congresswoman, are you at 24 hours a day with security?
24 hour. No, it's very expensive, Joe.
Okay.
I believe I think our MRA will show that. I think but like 40 dollars an hour, I don't know anyone who can afford unless you're independently wealthy. So we're thoughtful about the budget and how we expend it. It's right now for members of Congress, it's 10,000 a month. And the speaker has promised upwards of 20 to 25 a month if I need it. But I don't want to be excessive about it, so I'm trying to be very thoughtful about and mindful about it. But I don't get a detail, so I have to pay for it, and it is very expensive when we do. So we're mindful about the cost as well when we limit what my needs are.
That was my next question. When you're doing campaign events,
Mhm.
I've seen like the Capitol Police officer with you from time to time. You're going to have to reimburse Capitol Police when you're doing
I
campaign.
don't have Capitol Police coverage.
Okay.
That's private security that you're seeing.
Okay. All right.
We use a combination of local law enforcement, uniformed officers, and we use a combination of private security. We use a combination of both. When I had my announcement, I think we had off-duty officers and private security. We usually do a combination of local law enforcement, off-duty, on-duty, and then also private security. So, like, I can't do a public event with a minimum without 6 to 8 security officers. But in my day-to-day movements, it depends on what I'm doing, but a minimum of 2 people.
You're
It's
high
expensive, it
pro.
adds up, and I'm
Yeah.
not independently wealthy. I'm worth as much coming out as I did going in. I don't insider trade stocks or
Yeah.
anything.
Um, you're just as high profile as Lindsey Graham and Tim Scott.
Correct.
They don't talk about they receive threats, but they don't talk about as much as you do. Why do you choose to talk about it as much as you do?
Because I want people to know what life is really like. And the fact that, I have a number of people who are behind bars or being prosecuted for these kinds of threats. In the wake of Charlie Kirk, we have to take these things seriously. And I want people to know that it is difficult, that the political environment that we're in right now, that this has to stop. And I think the only way that we can get there is actually by talking about it, not hiding behind it. But I don't speak for anybody else. I speak for myself. And maybe it's because, I don't know what their threat level is or threat situation is. But I know what mine is, and it's extremely high. I mean, I was assaulted a year ago at the Capitol, like on the Capitol, at the Capitol.
The Pennsylvania person, was
I can
that
get you
just,
the name. I can get you the name. I don't have it in front of me, but that was an individual that threatened to assassinate President Trump and myself.
but was it just you and Trump? Did he name anyone
I believe
else?
so. I don't know. There could have been a third person.
Okay.
You guys might have written about this. I'll have Piper follow up and look up and provide that information. And then there's a new one, which we have not announced yet, that is being prosecuted for the bomb threats against my office that the FBI is prosecuting. But not every state prosecutes these things. One of my biggest frustrations, Joe, is that depending on the state, if it's a blue state, they often will opt not to pursue any of these. So, some of the best I can get is to get Capitol Police to travel to that individual, do a wellness check, that kind of thing, when the state decides that they're not going to prosecute someone who's threatened to kill a member of Congress. So there's a lot of frustration there as well against folks that certain states or certain areas or certain solicitors in different states that aren't prosecuting these things when they should be.